A year ago, when I said that I would stake my entire professional career on the fact that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was born a man, there were many people, of course, who did not believe me because that just sounds crazy.
Holy mother of Jesus, she's a man.
But even those people, thanks to Emmanuel Macron's strongly worded letter, which he had his legal team put together and ask me not to publicize, are now starting to pay a little bit of attention. Take this comment from popular Canadian YouTuber and lawyer who goes by Viva Frey. He wrote this under the episode regarding that letter. I was very skeptical at first that Brigitte was a man, but I've got to tell you, Macron's lawyers are really starting to convince me. Legally speaking, it was an implausibly stupid move what they did, okay? While refusing to just plainly state that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was indeed born a woman.
I'm a female.
They used all sorts of tricky language to suggest that they could sue me for defamation over minor errors that I made in my reporting. Okay, essentially, they were not addressing the substance of the claim. Brigitte Macron was born a biological male, but instead attacking things like, you said in an earlier report that a picture from Brigitte's communion was recolorized. This is false. This reporting has caused Brigitte to have mental anguish. Okay. But as I said, their lawyers made a critical mistake because in order to prove defamation, you have to prove that somebody acted in reckless disregard for the truth, that they knew the truth and they made a decision not to publicize it. Instead, they wanted to just publicize lies, which is something that if you guys watch this show, you know that I do not do. I do not engage in it. Quite the opposite. So by sending me a legal letter, they unintentionally provided me with a direct line, a direct link to ask Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron pointed questions. They can't pretend they didn't see our questions, okay? The majority of the questions that we asked them were simply yes or no. Those were the answers that we needed, with the promise that we gave them that if she answered the questions, we would fully report on the facts. So I want to show you some of these very simple 21 questions that we asked Brigitte Macron so that we can use our platform to put an end to her mental anguish, okay? Like I said, these are pretty simple questions. If you are a person and you are going through mental anguish because people are talking about you being born a biological male, wouldn't you race to answer those questions?
I am a victim of a hate crime.
Yeah. Well, apparently they simply were not anguished enough to hire. They were anguished enough to hire and pay an American legal firm in DC to send us a 100-page lettered threat, but they simply were not anguished enough or could not muster the energy to answer 21 basic questions to put an end to the scandal. We received no response from them because we knew that we would not receive a response from them because, well, they're lying. They are, in fact, lying to the public about Brigitte Macron's past identity.
So let me get this right. The French president is married to his father? And I know what y'all gonna say. What are you talking about? And honestly, I was saying the same thing when I heard it, but it's all over my timeline. So basically, Candace Owens, and I know y'all know Candace Owens, she's known for doing research. For whatever reason, she got wind that the French president's wife was a man. Now, we're not gonna get into that, but what we are gonna get into is the fact that she did research, and basically the research came back that allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly because I don't know if it's true or not, that the woman that he's married to is his father. Now, mind you, Candace Owens has been doing research on this for over a year. Now, I didn't totally jump down this rabbit hole because y'all know I jumped down rabbit hole. But if anybody knows about President Emmanuel Macron, and if anybody has any truth to this fact, please put it in them comments. Because let me tell you something. Candace Owens is very convincing at this time. She is very, very convincing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, guess what? You can search it. Search it and let me know. This shit's crazy.
Jean-Michel, or John Michael, for 30 years before becoming Brigitte. Here's a side-by-side photo. Instantly very credible. Number two, Brigitte Macron claims that no, Jean-Michel is her brother. Problem is that her brother's missing. Her brother, who she claims is alive, we just cannot turn up anywhere. It'd be very easy for her to just go on a little walk and say, here is Jean-Michel, We just happen to look alike, but no, Brigitte Macron refuses to do that. And then in terms of genealogical data, people prowling through the internet and looking, what they have revealed is that a person named Jean-Michel existed for about 30 years and then just stopped existing. And then suddenly Brigitte Macron arrived and existed. So yeah, that's problematic. Number 3, there are no photos of Brigitte Macron in the first 30 years of her living. This is the biggest point. Again, as I have demonstrated, it's very easy to show photos of you living for 30 years. In fact, the opposite is happening. The press, in one circumstance, has tried to pass off a photo of her daughter. They just turned it into a black and white photo and said, oh, there's Brigitte. In a desperate attempt to pretend that Brigitte existed as a child. Here is a side-by-side photo. It is obviously Trifane in this photo. Trifane is the name of her daughter. So that's weird. It's also weird that they're sending the police to threaten people that are covering the story. It's just very bizarre. Number 4, the international press could not locate her alleged ex-husband that she allegedly had 3 children with. That's a big deal. Yes, when Emmanuel Macron became president, the international press, nobody was trying to spin a conspiracy theory, just said, wow, this is weird. We can't find her ex-husband. And perhaps even more bizarre is they similarly tried to pass off a fake picture of him as evidence that he existed. Here is the photo that was circulated of him, and that turned out to be a faculty photo from the school that Brigitte taught at, La Providence. The man in that photo is a man named Claude Hugo, a fellow teacher. So what's going on? Brings us to number 5. Well, if these claims are true, ones that should very much be investigated, that would mean that Brigitte Macron is actually 78 years old, 8 years older than she claims to be. Giving credence to that claim, by the way, are the various interviews over the years where Brigitte just seems to keep forgetting how old she's supposed to be. For an example, as we brought up, she implausibly said that she was living in the United States during the moon landings of 1969, except that would have made Brigitte 16. Brigitte said she was living alone during the moon landings. No, 16-year-olds are not allowed to live alone in the United States. But if she was 8 years older, if Brigitte was 24, then she very much could have been living alone. So today we are going to build upon something that people don't quite understand. So I want to make...
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. I think by now the world knows about Macron, the one and only Macron who has been terrorizing Africa, specifically West Africa, and again specifically Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. This man has been terrorizing Africa and he has been making Africa feel like a place of evil, a place of torment, a place of dictatorship. You know, walls keep a lot of secrets. Walls really keep a lot of secrets. If walls were to speak today, even you who is watching me would be found guilty. Yeah, would be found guilty, and maybe every one of us would be in jail. You understand? Apparently, you've now heard that the president of France, Macron, married his father, and it turns out that Macron's wife, Brigitte, is a transgender. Not just any transgender. His father, he married his son, Macron, and then he turned himself into a female, and now he got himself to Macron. Okay, they married one another, which is very, very obscene. If you come to think of it, even in Africa, we don't allow for such things to happen. In Africa, even animals don't practice transgender. And there are specific animals which do not practice incest, whatever, you know. But hey, I just wonder the hypocrisy and moral bankruptcy that the president of France has. This man has been condemning African leaders. This man has been condemning people. He has been condemning Ibrahim Traore. But he had his own problems, you know. He had his own problems. I'm telling you, I wonder what happens in the West. I just wonder. Think of anything unimaginable, it will always come from the West. Even Barack Obama, it is always said that Michelle Obama is a man, you know, but investigations were not done like the one Candace Owens did. Like there's so much. And so Africans, black people, white people, everyone is reacting on this situation, you know. Let us listen to what the world has to say. I shall get back.
Oh my God. The fact that we've been lied to this whole time, and yet no one else said anything about this, about the disturbing truth of what transgender means. That we've been lied to this whole time. And what if I told you guys would never guess it? And I too believed like you guys did. That is until I saw this video. Because after seeing this and what he said at the end completely changed my life. I mean, just look at this.
The ritual of Baphomet, the transgender, to show allegiance to him, you had to kiss his ass ring.
Really?
And it said both of those things. So I knew that both of those things will become popular in the future. And that somehow calling people the goat would be normalized over the sheep being always the most popular reference.
So the French president was 14 when he met his now wife. She was 39 and she was a teacher, okay? Candace Owens has spent over a year digging. She's got her whole team digging. They have not threatened to sue her because they know that she'll say, yeah, take me to court.
And it's all gonna come
and
to
it's
light.
all gonna come to light, okay? So they sent like a nasty letter, like threatening her. She's like doubling down, okay? She pulled up all of these, like, she's got different timelines and explaining how there's no pictures of the wife, Marguerite. Yeah, right? Her name is like Marguerite.
Whatever.
Macron. Brigitte.
Macron.
Brigitte Macron. Okay, so they tried, I guess the French press tried to like pin her as like some, you know, beautiful bombshell. She was a teacher, a theater teacher, and she just fell in love with this 14-year-old kid.
That doesn't sound wrong for you.
Right.
Hello.
Grooming, right? Okay.
Yep. Twice his age. Over twice his age.
So then she cuts to, well, okay, so I've just seen like the little clips. I haven't like sat and watched. These are like hours on YouTube. I haven't like sat and like watched or listened. I am going to, but
while I'm here.
Okay, so there's no pictures of the, you know, the wife, the lady, right? There's no pictures of her because she was married before. She was married while she met the, you know, 14-year-old student. She was married, supposedly had kids. Okay, supposedly, because she's technically a man. Okay, then somehow it comes out that Candace Owens like uncovered this part of the timeline. She found like an old interview where this lady / guy had transitioned and was like on a TV show, and she connects it back to being the president's wife. She is really president's dad. Like
I know, you've told me this.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then one of the picture of the French president in his office, one of the books that he chose was like this nasty like poet guy. And that's the same, I think it was the same guy that she had talked about in the TV interview where she wasn't Brigitte Macron. She used like a pseudonym. No, it was like Veronique or something. It was something like that. So now I have to go back and watch and figure out how did she piece it together that this guy's wife is actually his dad.
I actually don't even know how to process this. I've been watching Candace Owens and she's been deep diving into this insane conspiracy about the French president, and it's unreal. So here's the deal. Candace Owens believes well, she knows that the French president is married to a trans woman. And not just any trans woman, but his own father. His father. I know that it sounds insane, but this woman has been researching for over a year to prove this. And if you don't feel like watching all the videos, I'm gonna break down the 3 major pieces of evidence that she has, but here's the backstory. Emmanuel Macron is the president of France, and his wife is Brigitte. She was allegedly a former school teacher. So here's evidence number 1. So Candace dug up old records and found that there's actually no trace of this woman, no birth certificate, nothing. And even her school years didn't add up. Students say they never heard of her. Records are missing, and there's 0 trace of a young Brigitte. Which brings me to piece of evidence number 2, where things get even crazier. Candace found an old article from the 70s about Macron's father, talking about how he disappeared for a period of time, only to return looking different. And old family photos show Macron's father at the time, after he reemerged after being gone, to have strange resemblance of Brigitte, Macron's current wife. But at that time, he was presenting as a man. Basically, the theory is this. Macron's father legally and physically transitioned into Brigitte, and then later they fell in love with their own son and married him. And because they're so powerful, the entire story was just wiped clean until now. And Candace Owens is just getting savage. She's not holding back at all. Meanwhile, Macron's team is just scrambling to do damage control. Reports even claim that the French press has been warned not to even touch this story. Honestly, I don't even know what to do with this information. My brain is freaking melting, because if this is true, if this is even half true, this would be one of the biggest political cover-ups in history. I am not okay.
From 1977. And it's a man who says that he is transitioned and living as a woman named Veronique. Now, for my English listeners, this is going to be a bit confusing for you. So I'm going to describe to you why this was so explosive. Every person that speaks, you can transition your name, you can try to speak in a different tone, but you have tics, you know, almost things that you say that you don't even recognize that you say, words that you might rely on. And for First Lady Macron, that tic, so to speak, is she says, that is to say, right? That is to say. Some people might say like. You know, like I was going to like the store, and like her tic is that is to say, that is to say. So we have this individual who appears, does not show their face, it's shadowed on this talk show in 1977, says their name is Veronique, and says that they have transitioned. And the person has the exact same voice as the current First Lady of France, and the same tic. And of course, at the time that the First Lady was doing all these interviews, she never thought that the public was going to dig up this old interview of this transgendered individual on a talk show saying, that is to say, over and over again. So I'm going to play a little bit of this interview. Of course, it is in French, so this will mean nothing to English listeners, but then I'm going to read you the transcript because there's some other important coincidences that happened. Take a listen.
Je crois qu'en fait, il n'y a pas de transformation parce que le psychisme est déjà féminin et l'individu, en l'occurrence moi, est déjà préparé à ce genre de mutation par nécessité, en ce sens qu'on se sent femme et on régularise une situation sans plus. Il n'y a pas mutation, il y a régularisation.
Vous êtes devenue complètement femme, donc vous avez été opérée il y a combien de temps?
J'aime pas tellement le mot devenir complètement femme. Oui. C'est-à-dire que nous devenons une sorte de femme pouvant copuler, mais ne pouvant pas procréer. Oui. De là des problèmes juridiques d'ailleurs, dont on parlera après. Oui. C'est-à-dire que l'intégration se fait sans problème sur le plan individuel. Il n'existe que sur le plan social.
You could refer to this as a voice footprint. That's a perfect way to say it. It's a voice footprint. There are things that you just can't rinse yourself of. But also, even when you transform your identity, you still have an identity. You still have interests that don't magically go away. If you change your name, okay, this is why I'm going to tell you what she says in the script. If I'm Candace Owens, even if I change my name to Jean-Michel Trogneux, doesn't transform my interest. It doesn't make me, I love Italian food. I'm not going to suddenly like not like Italian food because I could become Jean-Michel Trogneux. I'm not going to suddenly not be interested in the Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds case because I changed my name legally to Jean-Michel Trogneux. So I'm going to pull up the transcript for you in English and read you what this is translating into. So the interviewer asks, he says to the audience, I can only guarantee the authenticity of Veronique's testimony. Veronique, I'd like to know if when you had this operation, which is the one you've had, it was a difficult moment for you, or was it just the culmination of something that had happened before? Veronique says, I don't think there's any transformation because the psyche is already feminine and the individual, in this case me, is already prepared for this kind of mutation out of necessity, in the sense that we feel like women and we merely normalize the situation. There's no transfer, there's normalization. Interviewer says, so you're completely a woman? How long ago did you have the operation? Interestingly enough, she doesn't answer that part of the question of when she had an operation, but she goes on and she answers, I don't really like the words completely a woman. In other words, we become a kind of woman who can copulate but cannot procreate. Hence the legal problems we'll be talking about later. In other words, integration goes smoothly on an individual level. They only exist on a social level. Okay, so already she's starting to speak about this trouble that we know that Emmanuel Macron's mother is going to concern herself with, which is like, okay, there are these legal problems with who we identify with and who we know we're women, okay, but we have these legal hoops and barriers, and this is why I'm breaking and telling my story, because we have to change this. We have to be able to change this. And the interviewer asks her, do you live alone? Veronique says, I'm not with anyone, but I've lived with a woman and conceived this union in the style of George Sand and Chopin. Chopin was probably a transsexual. His style of melody, the way he plays, makes this quite clear. I think the image that has been given of the Rimbaud-Verlaine union is a distorted, caricatured image that doesn't correspond at all. This is very important, okay? She has this speech tic. It's exactly like Brigitte Macron's. If you spoke French, you would understand that. But she also mentioned musical composer Frédéric Chopin, plus mentions gay poets Paul Verlaine and Arthur Rimbaud. Now, why is that significant? Okay, well, these poets, they were in a homosexual affair, but violent, a very violent relationship. These classical mentions regarding Chopin. The first couple, when they were creating their legend in the public, claimed that they had moved a piano into the Élysée Palace because Emmanuel Macron, remember the virtuoso, loved to play Chopin for Brigitte and for Brigitte only. So this is something, this matters to the couple, okay? Regarding the homosexual poets that she mentioned, Paul Verlaine and Rimbaud, Emmanuel Macron, while acting as president, considered admitting them both into the pantheon, which is... It's where they bury all of these French heroes, okay? And this sparked a massive debate. Like, should these people, first off, one of the lovers shot the other one, had to serve time in prison. Would this be a good thing to move them? He was going to honor them as this like homosexual, these homosexual poets and greats by burying them in this significant structure. But what ended up happening was Rimbaud's family firmly rejected that honor because they did not want his legacy to be reduced to a gay icon. And then there are some more interesting things to remember here, okay? When you jump back into the timeline, so Veronique appears, we don't know what this person's name is in life. They're using this name for this interview, Veronique. No last name, we don't know anything else. But don't forget that this person also said that he's not in a real relationship, but he lives with a woman. Okay, Veronique says he lives with a woman. Well, when we jump back into our Jean-Michel Trogneux timeline, we find that at this time, Jean-Michel Trogneux, following this interview, marries a woman. And ironically, her name is Veronique. So, could it be possible that Jean-Michel took on the name of a dear friend named Veronique, who he was living with, and who he then moved to marry? We don't know because, of course, there are no pictures of this wedding. There's nothing there. Jean-Michel Trogneux on paper gets married to a woman named Veronique Drew, okay? And then they have a child. They have a child in 1982 named Jean-Jacques. That's the Jean-Jacques that looks tremendously like Emmanuel Macron. And then shortly thereafter, in 1987, Jean-Michel divorces Veronique Drew. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Seriously, just like what is going on in this story?
Candace Owens might be in a lot of trouble, but I don't think she cares. So we all know that Candace Owens is saying that the French president is married to a woman that's a man. And that woman, that's a man that he's married to, is his father. And of course, I know you're looking the same way I was looking, like how? But let me tell you something. Candace Owens has done so much research on this. And like I said in my last video, she is very, very convincing. And what's making me think that everything that she's saying is real is how Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, is acting. So allegedly, he made her an offer, a $5 million offer, to stop talking. And of course, you know Candace did not and will not take that money. Also, there are people saying that there has been threats. Candace has said there has been threats, but still, whatever information she has, she said she's dropping it continuously. Now let me say, allegedly, she's saying that this man is married to his father. Now, as sick as that sounds, she says she has some more information. This is sick, man. I'm out.
So let me get this right. The French president is married to his dad. Yeah, Candace Owens has finished her series. She's done 3 years, I think, of research. And I know it sounds strange, that's what I first thought. But she's claiming the French president, Emmanuel Macron, is actually married to his own dad.
How I know that the whole Brigitte Macron topic that Candace Owens is covering is true is they are not suing her. They tried to send her a letter asking her not to publish this, and she did it anyways because she's like, come on, please sue me for defamation, because then we would go to court and you would have to prove what I found isn't fact. And some people are like, well, what does it matter if he's married to a trans woman? Which it wouldn't matter if what she found wasn't sick and twisted and disgusting. So it is a known fact that she was 39 years old and his teacher when she fell in love with him, a 14-year-old boy. That is grooming. That is sick. That is pedophilia. That's disgusting. And to top it all off, that's not even the worst part. So as she's digging and digging and digging, allegedly this may be his biological father that turned into a woman and began grooming him and then married him. And by him, I mean the president of France. So these sick people are running a whole country with their sick agendas.
They were able to dig up an interview from 1977. And it's a man who says that he is transitioned and living as a woman named Veronique. And the person has the exact same voice as the current First Lady of France.
J'aime pas tellement le mot devenir complètement femme. Oui. C'est-à-dire que nous devenons une sorte de femme pouvant copuler, mais ne pouvant pas procréer. Oui. De là des problèmes juridiques d'ailleurs, dont on parlera après. Oui. C'est-à-dire que l'intégration se fait sans problème sur le plan individuel, il n'existe que sur le plan social.
Essentially, someone in the chat here just said, that's her voice. And she has, after somebody used an AI voice analysis, they said that this was 100% the same person. And the only difference is that the voice has aged. It's a lot of coincidences.
Recent discussions have emerged regarding Brigitte Macron's background, with some pointing out perceived discrepancies in her personal history. A resurfaced interview from 1977 features a transgender individual whose voice and mannerisms have been noted by some to bear a resemblance to Brigitte Macron. Additionally, questions have been raised about the limited public information about Brigitte Macron's first husband, who was rarely seen and reportedly passed away under unclear circumstances. In response to such claims, Brigitte Macron has taken legal action against individuals spreading misinformation. These theories have been widely dismissed by reputable media outlets, and the public is encouraged to verify claims through credible sources.
Brigitte Macron. That person that you are looking at on the right is not a woman. This little boy, Jean-Michel Trogneux, that second photo, I believe they found a photo of him at a pride parade when he was just living as a homosexual man. That next photo is when the transition began, if I recall correctly, and that's a photo from the professor years. Piers Morgan tweeted over the weekend after the Olympic ceremony, "BTW, what the F was all this about? A drag queen mockery of the Last Supper at the Olympics? Would they have mocked any other religion like this? Appalling decision." That's what Piers Morgan tweeted. I tweeted right back at him. I said, so like, remember when I was telling you a couple of weeks ago that France's first lady was a dude in a bad wig? Yeah. Don't pretend to be appalled. Don't pretend that it's absurd.
Candace Owens' recent accusation against Brigitte Macron is part of her pattern of controversial statements aimed at prominent public figures. Many individuals and organizations have come forward to defend Brigitte Macron. Several fact-checking organizations have investigated Owens' claims and found them to be unfounded. They have emphasized the importance of relying on verified information rather than unsubstantiated rumors. Candace Owens' accusation against Brigitte Macron is a stark reminder of the power and potential harm of misinformation. It is crucial to approach such claims with skepticism and seek out credible sources to verify information. The response from the public and media demonstrates a commitment to truth and integrity in public discourse.
After a year and a half of procedures, they finally gave us a photo. It's Jean-Michel Trogneux at 18 years old. There's no room for doubt. We have the directory, we have the list which certifies that it is indeed the same individual. And so there we see Jean-Michel Trogneux, and when we compare him, it's very striking since we actually see distinctive signs which aren't misleading, notably below the mouth and this thing here, which looks like a mole or a pimple.
Has anyone else fallen down this Brigitte Macron, Candace Owens whole saga that's going on? Like, tell me this isn't just me. I have literally been calling my friends saying I need you to go and watch this because I need somebody to debrief with on this. And nobody's watched it, so I'm coming to TikTok. First of all, I love Candace Owens. No, I don't agree with everything that she stands for, but I love the independent journalism and the way that she is not scared to say what the fuck she thinks. I'm only on episode 3 of her YouTube series, by the way, because there is such a large amount of information that we have to, like, digest that I'm doing it bit by bit. I cannot get over this. How has this been covered up for so many years? Like, she was 39 and he was 14. 14! And then the media rewrites it to say that they met again when he was 17 and they fell in love. Are you serious? This is the definition of how the media portrays things. Really is dependent on if somebody gets away with something or not. I haven't yet got into the juicy details about is she a transsexual, is she not? I'm only on episode 3, but I'm already mind blown. Like, what are we thinking? Please, please tell me your thoughts on this because I need people to debrief on this with. I actually can't wait for this evening where I can watch like 2 more episodes. I think that will be a lot of information.
Happy Friday. This is going to be the craziest Friday plausibly ever on this show. I teased yesterday that I had a major announcement. I don't say that lightly. When I say I have a major announcement, I mean it. I'm not going to give you a big tease and then a big letdown. And this one is positively massive. I think it's going to be all anybody is talking about. I don't know that this has ever happened in the history of the world. involving a president and a journalist mom in America. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to Candace. Again, yesterday I received a letter, and I would say that this letter plausibly changed the trajectory of this year, certainly for me. You know, I don't know why people keep sending me letters. And I am going to tell you that I received this letter from a process server. Now, when you hear that you are getting a letter from a process server, you think one of two things in my world. You are being sued or you are being subpoenaed. It actually happens way more often than you realize. Sometimes you're being drafted into someone's lawsuit. They think that you have some information or some text messages, or otherwise you yourself are being sued, like when I was being sued by Kimberly Klacik for defamation, which eventually I won that after years. So it's not something that particularly unnerves me anymore, because typically sometimes you're getting drafted and there's no reason for you to be drafted. Your lawyer responds to it and it's completely over. But this one was indeed addressed to me. And what was strange about this is that when my lawyer was able to determine what it was and who it was from, this was atypical because it was not a lawsuit and it was not a subpoena, but it was a strongly worded letter, essentially a legal threat. And people don't typically use process servers for legal threats. Even stranger was who it was coming from. It was coming from a law firm representing current sitting president, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte Macron. Okay? Like I said, this is insane. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of the world. Plausibly, you don't hear about a foreign leader currently sitting in power, sending around legal letters to people that are sitting in other countries, no matter what that person is saying. But it's going to get so much more crazier than that, okay? Because there were a lot of odd things about this letter. First and foremost, they strenuously requested that I not publicize it. They did not want me to publicize this letter all over it. This is not meant to be publicly disseminated. Okay, you have no legal right to tell somebody that they can't share a letter that they received. I'm sorry you sent it. I have a right to share it. And I'm going to tell you my suspicion about why it came across as they wanted to keep this rather hush-hush. But apart from asking me not to publicize it, they get into explaining to me how I am engaging in types of defamation. And I'm going to show you this letter because the story behind it is even crazier, okay? So first and foremost, they are addressing statements, the bulk of this letter is addressing statements that I made last March. You're probably wondering in your head, why would they send this letter, which was addressed on December 3rd? That part is even crazier. But aside from telling me not to publicize it, they tell me right at the top that it's really none of my business whether or not Brigitte Macron is a man or a woman. Like, she doesn't have to.
So, you know, that is the world, and that is the world as we know it. The world is falling apart. You see? It's not normal. It's not normal. LGBTQ has never been normal. It's not a normal thing. And I'm not wrong to say it's not a normal thing. It is linked to that secret society. It is so much linked to it, you know? I just can't imagine the hypocrisy this man has been having. Walking up front, pointing fingers at Africa, saying that Africa should give him thank you for colonizing us, saying that Africa are ungrateful for colonization. What now can Africa say about the situation? You tell me which African leader does such a thing. Tell me. Just tell me what it is. Which African leader would do such a thing? Sometimes I wonder if these people are humans. I wonder a lot. I wonder if these people are really, really humans. I really wonder. In all context and in every sort of meaning, I wonder if these people are humans. How can you do such a thing? I can't even imagine. Okay, we've heard of sons sleeping with their mothers, fathers sleeping with their daughters, but this one is just way on another level. Your dad marrying you, and your dad being a transgender? Oh my. Who can write such a script? Who? What I'm being surprised is just how he has been condemning Africans, how he has been pointing fingers at African leaders. he also had his own things. That's why you shouldn't point fingers at other people. Because if you point a finger like this, know that these other fingers, these 3 other fingers, and this one is pointing back at you. So if you're quick to point fingers at people, one day the world itself will point fingers at you. I am very much convinced each day that we are living in the end times. We are living in the end times. It is so sad that we are living in the end times. So sad, so sad. Now, if a leader, they say a leader should lead by example. If a leader himself is someone who does such a thing, how will other people act? How? How? Oh my, the West. I still wonder what kind of people the West are. I'm still wondering. I'm still wondering. I'm still wondering. Investigations have been done for 3 years. Another one for 1 year. And these people they don't want to press charges because they know this woman will bring out evidence to even further solidify her arguments. Oh goodness, goodness. May God forgive us. May just the Most High God forgive us for our mistakes. May He forgive us. Yeah. These EFK original documentaries, in Africa we don't do such things, and we don't believe in doing such things. People who do such things are perhaps they are practicing rituals. Rituals for money, rituals for power, ritual to gain the world. But in Africa, no. Leave us with our purity. Just leave us. Those things, let them remain there. Let's not bring it over here in Africa. Yeah. Again, this is EFK. Support me on Patreon. Subscribe. Share this video. You can give us super thanks if you like this. Yeah. See you in the next one.